Oopsies.
Oopsie doopsie.
Pope done it again. Oh.
Interesting. Especially very interesting case studies to look into, especially in India and East Asia and Southeast Asia. Yeah, very interesting to look into that stuff. I would, if you're interested in your global queer history, we've always been here, baby. We've always been here.
We just we had a third gender in India for so long, and then they took it away. They said no gender for you. Anyway.
They took your spices and took your genders.
And they didn't use either of them properly.
Horrible crimes.
Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a discarded helmet.
And this week, we sharpen up our psychic powers in feudal Japan with Netflix's Yasuke. Before we can prove that teamwork makes the dream a greater statistical probability, remember you can help us on Mortified, the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod. And speaking of our newsletter, the February edition comes out early next week. So we're actually switching to a new hosting service. So if you want to sign up at www.getreview.co, we'll put the link in the show notes. But it's a new thing, but it's the same thing. You'll get our personal media recommendations of the month, and some extra fun takes that we maybe did not have time to elaborate on. But with that bookkeeping out of the way, Leyla,
Aaron,
how you feel about Samurai?
Generally, pretty favorable.
Yeah, I would say me as well. Generally, I think Samurai are neat. And that is kind of the reason that we wanted to watch this Yasuke, which came out in April of 2021, I believe. And we were talking about it, and we're like, oh, this was like kind of a cool thing. We wanted to be doing more new media. There's a tension where we don't want to review too much stuff that is from the early to late 2000s for fear of getting into our childhood feelings too much. But we wanted to watch Yasuke, and we have... I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't think we liked it very much.
No, we didn't. And that's okay. We're going to talk about why we didn't like it very much.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a conversation dissecting that, so I hope that'll at very least be interesting. I'll run down the plot real quick. So basically, Yasuke, who is a real historical figure, was a black African, specifically samurai under who served under Oda Nobunaga. Basically, he, this takes up after after Nobunaga was, betrayed and killed. And this imagines a future, with, I guess the Mongols got mecha technology. So there are mechas in this show. Basically, this evil Hojo daimyo has taken over Japan. And Yasuke is just like living his life, disgraced, not disgraced, but like in exile. And he, is just living in this little village, but he meets this family, specifically this little girl named Saki. It turns out she's got psychic powers. I don't know what to tell you. She's like, she can shoot like lasers and like float stuff with her mind.
It's crazy mind powers.
Yeah, that's true. That's specifically what she calls it. And basically, her caretaker makes Yasuke promise that he'll take care of her. Caretaker dies. A bunch of weird mercs show up to try to capture her. But Yasuke, fights them off initially, but then gets captured and brought before this guy who is a Catholic priest. But then he is like pretty quickly dispatched when Saki gets control of her powers. And then the daimyo comes for Saki. There's several big extended battle sequences, but in the end, Yasuke and Saki go to the daimyo, defeat her. She's like a big centipede spider lady, together with Saki's psychic powers and Yasuke's sword using. They defeat the daimyo. Basically, it's happily ever after. There's a lot of flashbacks to Yasuke's past when he was serving with Nobunaga and like the people he met along the way that kind of color some of the other characters that we'll talk about. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's only 6 episodes. It's not it wasn't a huge lift. I mean, it's maybe 3 hours total if you watch them completely, front to back. But yeah, Leyla, do you have any other plot points that I should bring up before we talk about characters?
Not really. Later we'll get into like the 6 episodes thing and just like writing for a short series, because there was a part of me that was ready for this to end on a cliffhanger and be ready for a season 2. No, it's like, that's it. You get 6 episodes, which is, basically a feature film. It's just just over 2 hours. So yeah, I think we can just jump right in and talk about, I would be interested also in just like, when we talk about characters, obviously we're starting with Yasuke. I am interested in just clarifying that, like, again, like you said, this is a real person that existed. It is unclear what country in Africa specifically he is from. There is some speculation he might be from Mozambique. There's a couple other like contenders. I believe the article I read mentioned he spoke Swahili, so he might be from regions that speak Swahili. But he was, as you said, like very respected, and he got to be one of the select 10 people who like dined with Nobunaga. He was a poet. He liked the arts, which is like a very, very interesting historical figure. But how did you feel about fictional Yasuke?
I mean, he was pretty good. I think that it's a pretty standard thing to say that protagonists are not necessarily the most interesting characters in any fictional story, and I think that's largely true for our Yasuke. He's, I think he has some depth, right, when we talk about his conflicting feelings about, what happened when he served with Nobunaga, and like the feelings he had for one of Nobunaga's other retainers, whose name was Natsumaru, I believe, the geisha. And how she helped, she was trying to betray Nobunaga, it seemed like, but then Yasuke, fought her and then eventually killed her, but he also had mixed feelings about that. So there is some background stuff, but largely, he seems like a nice guy who there's another little kid who I believe is named Ichika. And he like tolerates this little kid who wants to be a samurai.
I think Ichika's the mom. I think Ichiro.
No, you're right.
Ichiro.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. I was going to say Ichigo, and I was like, that's the Bleach guy. That's not right.
But no. Strawberry.
Yeah. Ichiro is like just kind of a little kid who bothers Yasuke and like tries to hit him with sticks and stuff, but Yasuke is just like too fast for him.
Yeah, I thought that was very charming. He's like, I think I described him in my notes as like a middle schooler who watches too much anime, and like you don't want to spend too much time around him personally, but you respect the commitment. Like that's the big vibe he gives off for me. Yeah, Yasuke was fine. Like I think all of these characters were done a disservice by the pacing.
Yes, we will talk about pacing because I think that is probably the weakest part, and what ultimately makes the show fall apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do you feel about our psychic wonder kid Saki?
I don't like that she looks like she's wearing lipstick. It distracted me the whole time.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
It's just it's just a stylization thing, but usually when you draw kids in an anime, you just don't define their lips because it looks like they have lipstick on a little bit, and she looks like she has lipstick on a little bit. I don't like it. And it might have just been a stylistic thing because everyone else has defined lips, but it was killing me the whole time. She looks too adult, and she has really long eyelashes. And I couldn't tell how old she was, and it truly distracted me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say she's probably not older than 13. But yeah, I mean, I think she was fine, right? Like, especially once she starts getting into her psychic powers and is able to like do stuff and isn't just like a helpless kid who needs to get saved, like then she starts being cool, and like there is like a little bit of bonding between her and Yasuke, like where, you know, she like they keep talking about how they keep saving each other, and she's like, you know, like I truly don't need your help anymore, I have these crazy psychic powers, I'm fine. Like that was kind of cute. And then like, you know, when they were back in Yasuke's house, and you know, she like, you know, argued for why he has to go and take her to Mariske the doctor. You know, I thought there was like a potential for some rapport there, but ultimately there just wasn't enough time for it. We just jumped straight into like the psychic fighting in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, there were moments where it was like that part you referenced where she in the forest is like, yeah, I have, you know, these crazy mind powers, I don't need your help. She did say one thing that worked for me though, because Yasuke asked her, he's like, okay, if you don't need my help, like, why did you ask me to come? And she just says, I didn't want to be alone. So yes. There were moments of like a really interesting character who is this kid who has these powers she didn't ask for, and they're like really powerful, and her life changed overnight, but she's still a kid. There were inklings of that, and that's something I wanted more of, but just, yeah, it was a pacing issue. Yeah, but her guardian, Ichika, is next.
Yeah, I mean, she was cool. You know, she played music at the bar. You know, and there was something with this flower necklace that hinted at, you know, her being part of a secret society, that never really got expanded upon, I feel. You know, she was largely fine. She does die in like the 2nd episode, so, you know, rip to a real one. She seemed cool. I think she had an interesting relationship with the kids.
Yeah, rip to a real one is she did lose a whole arm.
Yeah.
And also like we never saw her die, so I feel like it ended pretty definitively, but I think they did leave an opening for a 2nd season. Yeah. I am not sure if it got renewed. I don't think it would.
I didn't see anything. Yeah.
It got a really lukewarm reception, which is a bummer. I wanted this to be really, really good, but
yeah.
Who's next?
I just lumped all the flashback people in together. So there's Oda Nobunaga, there's Natsumaru the geisha, and there's Mariske, who's the doctor. Do you have any strong feelings about any of them?
Yeah, I love Nobunaga. Listen, I have concerns with fictionalizing the lives of real historical figures in a ahistorical / fantasy setting. But Nobunaga is a queer, progressive king in this show. He is done so favorably in these 6 episodes. Him and his twink boyfriend. Like, it is, it brought me joy to watch, even though because he, like, the first time you see him, he's dressed in European clothes. He's got this twink boyfriend he's trying to impress. He, you know, takes Yasuke off the hands of these traitors who, like, dressed him like clowns. And he approaches everything from an angle of, like, wow, neat. And I like that energy. Natsumaru was fine. Morisuke was fine.
Yeah. To your point about Nobunaga, like that, you know, the fact that Nobunaga was a progressive, you know, kind of figure is just true. You know, Nobunaga was bisexual. Like, there's documented a lot. Like, he probably slept with Yasuke at some point. Like, that's just a fact. Like, you know, there is a reason that Nobunaga became like such a powerful figure in that time period. And it's because he had a lot of ideas and, you know, a big personality. You know, not to say that he was a good person, because, you know, anybody with imperial designs is objectively not, but like, you know, interesting guy. Again, like they do touch on some weird stuff. Like, we'll talk about it. We can't get into it yet, but yeah, the historical stuff is a lot. To wrap up the
Nobunaga being bisexual point, just as a point of, you know, if you're interested in the topic, our dear audience, it is interesting to look into when countries we consider quote unquote conservative became homophobic, because let me tell you, a lot of the times it's after the arrival of Christian missionaries from Europe. So
oopsies.
Oopsie doopsie.
Pope done it again. Oh.
Interesting. Especially very interesting case studies to look into, especially in India and East Asia and Southeast Asia. Yeah, very interesting to look into that stuff. I would, if you're interested in your global queer history, we've always been here, baby. We've always been here.
We just we had a third gender in India for so long, and then they took it away. They said no gender for you. Anyway.
They took your spices and took your genders.
And they didn't use either of them properly.
Horrible crimes.
Anyway, let's talk about the best characters in this show, which is the mercenaries.
True, they are the best.
Ishikawa is the big scythe lady, right?
Oh, hot. Very hot.
Yeah, she's pretty hot. I mean, that's about all she does, but she's cool.
Yeah.
Haruto's the robot.
Yeah, Haruto and Ishikawa have the best arc in the show, I think, because they fight a lot in an episode, and then they come back 2 episodes later, and they become friends. And then Ishikawa dies, and Haruto's very sad about it. And then he, Iron Giant style, sacrifices himself and says, "Goodbye, friend," and it did make me sad.
Yeah, Haruto is very interesting. He also has some very funny lines, like microaggressions between Yasuke and Achoja, who is this other African man who's like this weird shaman guy, because he's like, "Oh, that guy's black and you're black, are you related?" And it's just like everybody's just like, "Shut the fuck up," which is very funny.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of the creative team including these microaggressions in a context that like really showcases how stupid they sound, which I loved. I thought that was very funny. Nikita. Okay.
Oh.
So pros for Nikita. She does very tall. She's very tall, very strong, and I like that a lot. I would honestly, if she came up to me, because she does this a couple of times, and she's just like, "You, let's go have fun." I'd be like, "Yeah." No questions asked. Not even your name. Don't care. Like, I would get kidnapped by this bear lady. That being said.
She is a bear lady, and she's from Russia, which is, like, so on the nose, you could build a fucking snowman with it. Like,
the bear's fine. I don't mind the bear. That's fine.
I think it's bad, but whatever.
It's fine. I don't mind the bear. What I do mind is this. So, she calls Yasuke Cherny. I don't know if you could hear my mouth struggling to say that word. It's pronounced chorny. 1. 2. Adjectives in Russian work a little bit differently than they do in English, because what they're trying to do is to say that she just calls him black, like as a name. Black is not a fucking noun, and race doesn't work the way it works in the West. In Russian, you could say черный человек, which means black person. That is a descriptor. You wouldn't call a person just the word black. It doesn't grammatically make sense. That's not like a thing. It bothered me the whole fucking time because she did it all over and over again, and they couldn't even. You don't even need an accent coach. Go to Google Translate and click the little audio thing to listen to the way the word is pronounced. Cherny, chorny. I ask for very little, I think, for my people. We don't listen, make a caricature of us. I think we deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Russia's not looking very sexy lately. I understand. I get it. I thought the vodka joke was funny when she came in and asked for a vodka, and they were like, "Fucking what?" And she went and seduced a dude, and they're like, "Oh, I guess that's a vodka." Funny. I liked it. I giggled. Y'all, I get it. It's hard to pronounce. It's a different type of alphabet, but bare minimum, please.
Yeah. Just disappointing. Good character, but disappointing execution.
Died gruesomely.
Yeah, the most gruesome death in the entire show. Like, very, very gross and unnecessary. It was just so disappointing. Achoja, he's a cool shaman guy. He loves money. I think he's one thing that I will. We should be happy for is that the two black people in this show do make it out alive. So like that is cool.
They do. Yeah. I thought his little bit at the end where Morisuke was asking him to stay in the dungeon and protect the women and children. He's like, no, I belong out there, not in here. And he's like, I'll triple your rate. And he's like, children are our future.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Like,
so true.
Really.
So true. I'm always saying this.
Yeah, the mercs really shine in this show, I think.
They're the ones with the most distinctive personalities, and because they're like only motivated by money, it's just like, okay, that makes sense. There's Abraham, the Catholic priest, who is also like a weird, parasitic lightning man. He's fine.
I like it when he got stabbed by a giant cross.
I mean, yeah, that was cool. Listen, I love heavy-handed metaphors.
Pretty metal.
But yeah, I thought it was very weird to have like him like seemingly be the big bad, and they killed him halfway through, and then they're like, no, there's actually another big bad.
Can we talk about his brass knuckles though?
Yes, he did have brass knuckles. What did they say on them?
Domini Dextera.
Yes, which I think means, God,
Latin for the right hand of the Lord.
Oh, of course. That's very funny.
I literally ham-fisted imagery. Love it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's a fine guy. Again, I'm not sure why they introduced him as like kind of an overarching figure if they were going to kill him so quickly, but whatever. Lastly, the real big bad, the daimyo, also subhead with Black General Mitsuhide, who is just like one of her evil henchmen. She has a lot of weird henchmen that just like get thrown out there and then are instantly killed. But what did you feel about the daimyo?
I thought she was cool, I guess,
Yeah,
cool.
like cool design. That's about it. Just like a fairly standard big bad.
She did spell out for me what they were trying to make this show about. Because at the end, when she dies, she says, this is what change feels like. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I see. This is a show about a world resistant to change and how sometimes, in order to make progress, you have to use a little violence and to like stick to your guns and stuff, which, hey, I'm into.
That said, I don't think any of that, like, there are a lot of conversations, especially with like Mitsuhide's flashbacks with Yasuke, and like Mitsuhide being like, oh, you're a servant, you can never be a real samurai, and then Yasuke being, like showing him wrong and being like the best warrior ever, and that's all well and good, but like, I just, I don't think they wove in any other. Right, when you start the show with big fucking robot mechs, like, it is very difficult to be like, we're making big changes, when like there's, I think they could have done a little bit more to hammer home those themes. Yeah, but let's talk about the pacing, because I think that is really where the show falls apart. It's only 6 episodes. I think the problem is like the first 2 or 3 are very slow, or not very slow, but they're about the pace that you'd expect for a longer shonen show, like a Naruto or a One Piece, because they're slowly dripping characters in. There's giving them a lot of moments to breathe, which I like appreciate. Like there's moments where Yasuke is like fishing and going to the bar, and like we see little bits, but like we're not getting a whole lot of overarching world building, and like that's fine. I like that, but in a show that is so short, they really had to start cramming in some more ideas later on, and I think that really hurt it.
It feels like, and I'm not saying this is what happened by any means, or even speculating that this is what happened. I'm just saying the like pacing reflects a feeling of them having had more episodes initially, having made a couple, and then suddenly being told they have half the runtime.
Yes, 100%.
It like truly the beginning was like so pensive, and you spend a lot of time with Yasuke being sad, and you spend some time in the flashbacks, and even the stuff with Saki is like a lot of her laying in bed and stuff with her and Ichiro and her mom, and then all of a sudden episode 3 things just like pop off. You made a note, and I found this very interesting. She does not ever get a training montage. She just becomes Saiyan like in an hour.
Yeah, like as soon as she fights the priest, she becomes just incredibly powerful with her psychic powers, which is just a strange transition because in the first two episodes, she is like breaking shit with her mind powers on accident, and she hurts Ichiro at one point, and like she feels terrible about it, and she's like, "Oh, I can't control it." And then in episode 3 or 4, she's just like splitting priests in half with huge stone crosses, and we never really meaningfully see her gain more control over her powers.
She shatters a wooden sword and then reassembles it from the pieces and lays it down on the ground. Like, that is a level of precision and control that somebody who couldn't control their powers 2 days ago like shouldn't have. And if they, there is a world in which you could make it happen, like you could make it work, and then explore the implication of somebody controlling their powers that fast and like growing at that kind of a rate, but they didn't do that at all. Same with Yasuke. He hadn't fought in 20 years, and there was not like a tint of rust on him when he moved.
Yeah, it is very strange. And then, like you said, right, it seems like maybe, right, because it takes like 3 episodes for him to actually get his sword out, and like, put the armor on and stuff. And I really think that they could have stretched out the line with this Catholic priest guy and made the story much more focused on that, and then made season 2 like going against the daimyo or whatever, or going against Morisuke. But like instead they go from like this, oh, we have to go find the doctor, oh no, we've been captured, oh no, we get brought to the priest, Saki kills the priest, okay, sure. But like then the rest of the show is like, okay, we travel to the doctor, we meet the doctor, we find his temple of like psychic dudes, there's another lady that shows up at one point when they're traveling there. There's a big fight with her, and she was cool, but then she gets killed instantly by the daimyo when she returns, and it was like, hey, yeah, I found the kid. And then immediately after that, there's a big like battle sequence where the psychic resistance is fighting all the daimyos, like huge armies. And then it's the end of the show. And then Yasuke and Saki kill the daimyo, and it's just, there's so much like stuff going on for them to like just like power through the last half of the program. It really, I didn't feel like anything had time to breathe. I didn't feel like I had like an interesting or fully developed relationship with basically any of the characters except for the mercs, because again, if you make your characters one note, it's like this is who they are.
Yeah, there's not a ton of like, what do you think they were trying to make the emotional hook? Because I couldn't tell if it was like just Yasuke's story on its own, or if they were trying to make the Saki and Yasuke relationship more of the hook, or if it was just like all of his relationships. But there was nothing that like really dug its claws into me, and because usually like, I've been reading which we'll be talking about the first book of this series on this podcast at some point, but I've been reading the Bone Season series, and like it was written by an author who was 19 at the time, and the first book is kind of rough, but there's a very effective emotional hook in the main character and her relationships that kept me reading and like pushed me through to books 2, 3, 4, 3.5. And I was just, by episode 4, I was like barely watching.
Yeah, I was astonished that they got rid of Ichiro and what was the lady's name? Ichika. There you go. I was astonished they did away with them so quickly, because they spent the first 2 episodes building up so much of like a relationship with those two. Or I mean, not necessarily Ichika, but certainly Ichiro, who like follows Yasuke around and asks him all these questions, and like Yasuke clearly had some feelings for him because he made him a wooden sword. Like, and then they were just like, well, he's out of the story now. So, I think that's a big misstep to throw away a character like that. I mean, like, he didn't die, but like they took him out of the story, and we couldn't really see him interact with other people, and we couldn't really figure that out. And I just, it just seemed like such a misstep.
Yeah, especially because I think that's a really good point, because Ichiro is the litmus for how the community feels about Yasuke and Saki at any given point. So, like, when Yasuke gets accused of killing Ichika by the priest, the fact that Ichiro gets upset and like abandons him in that moment and believes the lie, that's, that's a litmus test for the audience of like, okay, how does that feel? And I think that that's where the world building fails too, because we don't ever have the locals react to the mechs, the magic, any of the ahistorical fantasy elements in a way that tells us, the audience, is this normal? Is this new? How should we be reacting to the presence of magic in this world or mechs in this world at all? Because this tall Russian lady rolls in with a robot and a lady with her tits out and a scythe, and these 16th century Japanese peasants like do not react. And I genuinely cannot tell if this is just like an everyday thing for them or like what's going on. And it's almost like, you know what other property did this? Frozen. This was my big frustration with Frozen too, because I never understood what magic in that world did and why Elsa having it was bad.
Huh. That is not the comparison that I thought I would hear today.
I'm trying to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Keep you on your toes.
I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, they say at, like, the beginning of, like, episode 2 or 3, like, anyway, the Mongols invented mechas, and they're here now, and it's fine. And, like, now we use them, and it's cool. So, like, okay, maybe it's fine if there's, like, a robot guy wandering around. Sure. But, like, they do react to her magic in a strange way, because they're all like, oh, she hurt Ichiro, or with her, she threw him against a wall. And then, like, it seems like, I guess they don't really explore it too much, but I think is it Mitsuhide or who's the Morisuke, his little psychic resistance, they seem like they're training and hiding, but then again they're not, because he also has a whole fucking army of just like normies. So like it is very strange. It doesn't really, like, at first we're supposed to be like, oh, magic is scary and new, but also, like, in the very beginning, we see this, big psychic army showdown at at this big castle, and, like, the archers are, like, shooting, laser arrows into the air and shit, and nobody seems to be being like, oh, wow, this is demon magic or whatever. Like, we're not told how to feel about it, and so we just, accept everything as pretty normal, and I guess that's fine. It really is fine. But like, you'd think, I just felt like a lot of this wasn't substantive. Like, I've done this, right? My first book has fucking mechs in, a time before we had any sort of that technology. But I made that kind of the source of one of the conflicts, is like, people have to do a lot of work to maintain the mechs, and like, it's a big deal, and they cost a lot of resources, and colonialism. And like, I never got the sense that, like, the mechs were meaningful. They were just sort of there. And maybe that's just because this is like a very, shonen anime. There's a bunch of big fights going on. The daimyo's armies are invincible and unstoppable, and no matter how many mechs you kill, they just all are fine. Like, they just keep getting up. They have, millions of troops to throw at them. But like, I never felt like there was any meaningful progress. Like, the battles never felt like they meant anything, especially when, at the end of every battle, either the bad guy just got killed by the daimyo, or you'll have a merc sacrifice themselves for no reason. I don't know what the significance of anything that was going on was, unfortunately.
I think this is a version of the frustration that we had with Repo, which is to say it could have been Fooly Cooly. You know what I mean? It could have been 6 episodes of just what the fuck is going on. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been just 6 episodes of wild mech samurai fights. Like Samurai Champloo meets Gundam or whatever. But it just didn't commit enough to any bit to, like, hook the audience on the world building or hook the audience on the character relationships. And that is a bummer, because I really wanted to like this. I really wanted this to be good. But I think this is a good moment to pivot into just like, and I don't want to, oh God, this is going to be a tricky conversation to frame, because I don't want to get into like, how do I want to word this? I don't want to get into like specifically Black creators playing around with like Black historical figures in a science fiction fantasy context, but like just historical figures in fiction in general. But like, how do we feel about the way Yasuke, the historical figure, is implemented in this fictional context?
Yeah, so we talked about the fact that Yasuke in this show faces discrimination because he is black and he lives in a world where everybody else is Japanese, and he's called servant by like, what's his name, Mitsuhide, and like he's like, oh, you'll never be a real samurai because you'll always be a servant, which historically was not the case, right? When Yasuke in real life was purchased from the Jesuits by Oda Nobunaga, he became a man that was highly exalted. People thought that Yasuke was good luck because of various Japanese beliefs in that region that likened him to one of their gods who was also had black skin. But like, I think, right, I don't want to say that you can't do that. I don't want to be like, oh no, because this is what historically happened, you can't take any liberties. And like, I think they were going for something, right? This goes with your theme of change, right? If they want to be like, hey, Yasuke represents the future, he is something new that has come into this world, and now he's going to change it and bring it into the new era. Like, I think that's fine, right? If you're going to make changes to the historical record, you should do them with purpose. And like, they did have a point. LaShawn Thomas and I guess Lakeith Stanfield was also an EP on this.
He was the voice of Yasuke.
Oh, okay, yeah. But was he also a producer?
Yeah, he was an EP.
Okay, yeah. So like, clearly there are black creators who have a stake in this show, trying to tell a story about what being black might have meant back in the day. But I don't know. I feel weird about. I don't know. Maybe I don't feel weird about it. I think it's fine, but I feel weird about the fact that they didn't make it more of a point to be like, yeah, and now change. Yasuke represents the change. There's resistance to the change, and then the change happens, and there's better, because Yasuke does go back to his village, right? There's not a whole lot of new stuff happening, right? Again, maybe this ties in with the mechs, right? I think they could have done something with change and how the mechs are a change. I don't know, but I think it's fine to make these kind of changes to the historical record, but I wish they had been, maybe I just need to be spoon fed. I don't know.
Right. I think there were a couple of things. It's hard to watch Yasuke, and I noticed this a couple of times. It's hard to watch it if you don't have any historical context for like samurai and that period in Japan, which, listen, I'm not going to say I have a ton, but I have enough. Like, we studied it in school for a while, and I've read enough like nonfiction things to like have some familiarity with that time period and its conventions. If you don't have any context for samurai, the samurai code, what their function was in society, their relationships to the feudal lords, ritual suicide, the show is a little insane, because it doesn't do any work to explain the historical context and the historical relationships or the fantasy elements that it throws at you. And divorced from the historical implications, it's even more confusing than it could be. And you have to keep in mind the context in which this show itself was being created, which is right in the aftermath of the George Floyd protests. And I thought there was a really meaningful passage in an essay by Warren A. Stanislaus, Warren A. Stanislaus is a Black PhD candidate in modern Japanese history, and he wrote an essay called The Significance of Yasuke, the Black Samurai, and the passage reads, "Entrusted with the fearsome katana sword, the armored black samurai is a potent image that disrupts these stereotypes. As a samurai, Yasuke's blackness becomes imbued with the qualities that are associated with the warrior class, such as honor, self-control, mastery, respect, and loyalty. or rather, the conferring of the samurai status affirms that Africans always embodied these virtues. Certainly, imaginations of the Zen-like Japanese samurai are often filtered through the lens of Orientalist exoticism, which is similarly harmful as the contrasting image of an African ignoble savage. Yet, the existence of the liminal figure of Yasuke, who is both black and samurai, unsettles the rudiments of such racial taxonomies and hierarchies. And this is in an essay that is, mentions a very poorly racialized PSA in Japan that went around that was explaining the George Floyd protests, that was showing a lot of the protesters as like very muscular, thuggish figures. And also mentions that Yasuke, who, as a historical figure, again, he was, in service to the Jesuits, had to have been some sort of warrior in his home country because he attained the status of samurai in just a year when people trained for a lifetime to achieve it. So I think I'm with you in the sense that, like, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to fictionalize historical figures. I think you have to be careful doing it because, like, with Oda Nobunaga, as you said, anybody with imperialist leanings should probably re-examine those. And he comes off very favorably in this show.
Yeah. Yeah. In real life, Nobunaga was a fucking jerk. So, like, what do you want?
To make another wild comparison to a children's movie, Anastasia really makes the Romanovs come off favorably. Hey, the Romanovs were not fucking good people. I'm not saying their children deserve to die, because they didn't, but the Romanovs, the parents, probably a little bit, yeah.
There was a reason there was a revolution.
Yeah. So, really, really, you got to be really careful with the way you kind of introduce these things, fiction into the lives of historical figures. But that being said, the stories of historical figures are open to fictionalization because they're stories. We will never know the real truth of the actual Yasuke. It's been obscured by time, so using his legend is different. But I think my kind of... I guess the lack of attachment to this story really lies in the fact that I'm just missing a hook. I understand the imagery that they're using. I understand the significance of it. I understand what they were going for, but there was something disconnected in the actual production of this show and just never came together. And I really wish that this had a little bit more time and a lot more money to stew, because this show is from the creator of Cannon Busters, which is another blacklight anime on Netflix that I've seen a couple episodes of, and is also visually very, very neat. God, I wanted this to be like another Samurai Champloo, because we're kind of overdue for that kind of hip-hop samurai vibe that show was carrying.
Yeah. Keeping that in mind, Leyla, if, when Disney grants us that blank check that we are fishing for, what historical figure do you kind of want to see immortalized in a similarly wild production, perhaps an anime? Okay,
so there's a Russian sniper from the World War II era.
Sorry, that was mine, is the thing.
Oh, are we on the same page?
You're talking about the not Vasily Zaitsev, but the girl, right? The woman.
Yeah, Ludmila Pavlichenko.
Yes, that's fuck.
Miss Pavlichenko had a bonkers body count somewhere in the 80s. Aaron, are you familiar with hey, audience, don't watch this show or read this manga. Are you familiar with Hellsing?
Only in the context that you bring up about once a month that it formed your psyche and warped you irreparably.
Yeah, I am still hot for Integra. So, Hellsing is a bonkers. Cannot recommend it. It did not age well. Bonkers show / manga about a vampire fighting society, and then it turns out that their big bads are Nazi vampires, mass-produced Nazi vampires. And they use they make Schrodinger's cat a cat boy, and he's on the Nazi side, obviously. It's a mess.
Wait, hold. The cat?
Yeah, Schrodinger's cat is a cat boy, and he's like a messenger from the Nazi vampires, and he pops up all the time. Yeah, he's great. I love him. I want that level of unhinged, like vampire Nazi fighting for Miss Pavlichenko. Maybe minus the sexual assaults that are in actual Hellsing. I don't want that. I want the vampire fighting. How would you immortalize Miss Pavlichenko?
I'm gonna change it because I was like, oh, Nazi, yeah, what Nazi fighting? Who is the coolest Nazi fighter I know? Oh, it's that lady sniper from the Battle of Stalingrad. So I didn't know her name, but I guess we were thinking of the same person. Very good. One brain cell, two hosts.
I'm telling you, we are morphing into one person.
bad for both of us, I feel. But I guess the phrase in our outline is local to us historical figure. And this is gonna be weird, but so I went to Indiana State University, in good old Terre Haute, Indiana, and the most famous historical figure from that prestigious university is Larry Bird, the basketball player. And I would love a fucking, like, what's that stupid show? Space Jam-esque, anime that's just Larry Bird as he plays against, as he leads the Indiana State Sycamores through the NCAA tournament that one time, until he finally faces off against, whoever beat them that year. I don't know anything about basketball, but I think that'd be fucking wild.
Okay, but what corporate mega conglomeration is this universe in?
So we can't do Warner Brothers.
You could.
Listen, Warner Brothers already has. We have to make it slightly different. Oh gosh, there's like 3 companies. This shouldn't be hard for me, because I can't do Disney either. Who owns a strange yet endearing IP that would be very interesting to have Larry Bird warp their way through? I was gonna say, I believe it's Toei Animation, right?
Probably.
Yeah, don't they own the rights to Evangelion? Or they own rights to a lot of anime. I know that. Maybe not Ava, but I know they definitely own like a lot of Shonen Jump shit. So I would love just like Larry Bird leading a team of fucking shonen protagonists like Naruto and Monkey D. Luffy in a basketball game.
What if it was like a crossover between Jump Force?
Yes.
What if we just put Larry Bird in Jump Force?
Yeah, hold on. I know Jump Force is about to be, like, tomorrow is about to be unable to be purchased forever, but let me really quick write a letter to Shonen Jump and be like, hey, I have this great DLC idea, you're gonna love it.
Wait, is it really not gonna be able to be purchased?
I think so. I think they're at least taking it offline for something.
I gotta look that up, because if it is, I gotta buy it today, because I think you can be mean to Light Yagami in it.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I would support that, I think. Put Larry Bird. Put him in Smash.
Put Larry Bird in Smash. We've all been thinking it.
I mean, Sora's in there,
Might as well.
Great.
Listeners, if you have your own wild historical figure crossover that you want to pitch to us, give us a call at 775-573-8882.
A quick bonus. Do you know who is a very, very famous religious Rochester figure?
I've got a bad feeling I do, but you're going to tell me.
It's Joseph Smith, baby!
Oh.
Mormonism was started here.
He's from New York?
He's, I believe, Rochester. I'm pretty sure.
No way. Man, y'all must have been so mean to him. He walked so far away from Rochester.
In 1830, Joseph Smith founded Mormonism in Palmyra, New York, which is like 30 minutes out of Rochester.
Wow, he really had to go so far away from New York to do Mormonism, huh?
So put Joseph Smith in Smash.
Leyla, we're not trying to put important religious figures in the greatest crossover event of all time. Where can people find us on the internet?
You can find me at LEYLSES on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm mostly posting gay wizards being tender right now because I forgot how to draw and it's the only thing I can. So enjoy that. Aaron, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL, where I tweet about health policy and tabletop RPGs. I just released an essay about the semi-related to this. It's called Not My Daimyo, Looking at Feudalism in the Book of Boba Fett. Because a little bit similarly to Yasuke, they take a lot of the trappings of... actually, they don't. They just use the word daimyo in the Book of Boba Fett, and I thought it was fucking weird. And I put some maybe helpful world-building tips in for Disney to maybe try to make their feudalism more distinct. Anyway, I also do another podcast. If you liked that Joseph Smith joke, it's called... Bible Boys. You can find us at The Bible Boys. We did recently do an episode about friends of the show, Imagine Dragons, and their Mormonism documentary, Believer. But tomorrow we're recording an episode about important Christian songs with Christian themes in American pop culture, which will be very interesting. So I can't wait for y'all to listen to that. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, after this very difficult month of January, what do we want our listeners to go out on?
Well, friend, sensors seem to indicate that you are dead.
I certainly fucking feel like it. I'll see you all next week.